wearing my disappointment hoodie.
I have not worn the Falcons jersey since I left Nashville in a very sad heap of death when we lost the Super Bowl.
That's fair enough. Well, yeah, no, yeah. I think every Falcons fan is well aware of what happened.
Alrighty, guys. So, a new thing that we are going to do, I'm going to have people come on, have guests on the show. And right now, what we're going to do is Georgia, right here, is going to invite his good buddy, John the Stone, on the show. And we're going to do a stardom sit-em for the NFL for week 14. I know Thursday Night Football is tomorrow, but hey, it's only two teams, and I don't know if anybody's affected. John will know that faster than I will. He is way better at fantasy football in the knowledge department, even though I'm currently ranked higher in our league. So, John,
Thank you for clarifying the knowledge department.
yeah, he knows what's going on. He's got his thumb on the heartbeat of the NFL. I think everybody knows I'm much more of a college person, but we've been playing fantasy for probably a decade now. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So let's just jump in. Just to clarify for everybody, the starts are going to be all six positions, but the sit-ems are going to be the big four, which is QB, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. But the starts will throw in kickers and defense. So to start off, who are you starting? Who's your start of the week at QB?
I'm going to go. So I know the big, and I don't think either of us picked him, but I know the big start that a lot of people are pushing this week is Jared Goff. I didn't want to go kind of chalk. I wanted to go a little bit out there. So I'm actually going to say Mac Jones, the quarterback of the New England Patriots. Now, let me tell you why. So I'm going to use a term a lot throughout this video called schedule adjusted points allowed. So basically, that's a fancy analytics term that means fantasy points allowed above expectation per game to the position that we're talking about. So basically, instead of just points allowed, it's the points allowed over the expected points. So it's kind of a better indicator of, where these defenses rank against these positions. So currently, New England's going to play Arizona. Arizona is 30th in schedule adjusted points allowed to quarterback. So that's a great matchup for Mac Jones. I anticipate there being a positive game script. I think Arizona is good enough that Mac's going to have to keep throwing the ball. And also, if you look at the last 3 weeks, Mac Jones is actually fifth most among passing yards among NFL QBs, behind names like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Pat Mahomes, Derek Carr, some guys you may have heard of. So I know Mac's been a little disappointing this year, but I think this week he keeps up his trend, and I think he's a good start. Solid floor, maybe not the ceiling play, but if you're looking for somebody who's going to get you, 15 to 20 points, I think he could be your guy this week.
Interesting. I'm sure that helped him last week yelling at Patricia because the run game sucked. I think there was a few expletives in his rant. So maybe they listen. Maybe they listen to Mac Jones, let him sling it around. I know Jacoby has had a pretty good year. Myers has done pretty well. And the tight end over there, it's kind of been a blanket for Mac.
Hunter Henry, yeah. We may be talking about him later.
Oh, okay. All right, I understand it. I never go against Belichick, even though the departure of Tom Brady kind of brought him back down to reality. But I don't think that's a terrible pick. I think that's all right. What am I doing? Oh, Herbert is my start for QB this week. I think it is just because of the situation he's in. Keenan Allen's back. They're going against Miami. Miami kind of got dog dragged last week, and Tua wants to get back in. So I think just going on the points where you're going for a floor, I'm going for ceiling. I think the Chargers and Miami end up being somewhere. Both teams are north of 30 points, which means really good, and it'll be a shootout in fantasy points. So I think Tua versus Herbert is a great matchup. A lot of people would say start Tua, especially with Waddle on the outside, and that other guy that they call the Cheetah. He's pretty good at football. But I wanted Herbert in this one. I think he will have the ball in his hands last, and I do think he converts and kind of puts a statement win for the Chargers, who've been kind of up and down this year.
Yeah, I like it. Herbert, they've definitely been up and down, and I can see starting to as well. Waddle, there's actually some rumors that he's hurt and may not play. I think he does play, but you know, either way, it's one of the highest over unders in Vegas at 52 points. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of points to be had, I think regardless of how it plays out, Herbert's going to either have to throw a lot to score the points, or he's going to have to throw a lot to keep up with Miami. So I like it.
All right, so who you got for running back for starts?
Running back, I got a pair of running backs, so you can start actually. A pair on the same team. And we're actually going to stay in the Miami Chargers game because I'm going with the Miami running backs, Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. I know Wilson was super disappointing last week. I think he had like 0.7 fantasy points, which is no bueno. But, I think both these guys have had their games. Jeff Wilson, ever since he's been traded, that first game, I remember as a Raheem Mostert owner, it rang the alarm in my head. It was like, I need to trade Raheem Mostert and get rid of him to be out of this situation. But I think both guys are viable. The Chargers are 29th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to running back. So it's another good matchup. We just mentioned the over under at being at 52 points. So there's going to be a lot of points to be had in this game. And I think no matter how it plays out, somebody's got to score the points, and I think Miami, the reason why I went with the running backs in this game, Miami is actually 3.5 point favorites, despite being, I think they're on the road. I think that game's in LA. So, it's the second highest over under. They're 3.5 point favorites. I think Wilson bounces back, and I think both get enough work to be, good flex plays with the ceiling of like RB2. So,
yeah, it is in LA.
Very cool.
Miami's traveling out there, which I think gives them a little bit of jet lag. I know they get used to this kind of stuff, but little things matter in those. I do like that. My luck in fantasy has always been if I've got both, I start this one goes off, and then I switch them the next week. And the OC looks at my fantasy team and is like, that guy, we're going to run the other guy. So you just start both. Somebody's going to do something. I like it. So mine for this week is going to be DeAndre Swift as a running back. I know Jamal Williams has the goal line runs, but my thought process is I like Minnesota's defense on the interior. However, Swift goes out of the backfield a lot, especially in PPR leagues. I think Swift is going to get probably 6 to 8 catches this week. They're going to go out to the boundary and not try to run up the middle into Minnesota's teeth of the defense. They're going to test the boundary and the linebackers on it. So I don't anticipate Swift getting more than 40 yards rushing, but I think in PPR leagues, which for everybody at home, we run a PPR league. Half PPR. I think that's solid. Where I don't think the ceiling is huge. I think the floor for him is a solid 10 to 12 just in receiving yards for Swift, which is great for a running back if you can get that out.
Agree. Yeah, I like Swift a lot this week too. I actually benched Swift last week in my family league, and so that's you're welcome for everybody who started him. That's why he went off. So
thanks. I have him in our league. It's great.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So
I like it. That's a good one.
Move on to wideouts. So who's your top wideout start this week?
All right, my top wideout start. I wanted to go with all of the Detroit Lions wide receivers, but obviously Amon-Ra St. Brown. If you have him, you're starting him. I'm lucky enough to have him in our league, and he's been absolutely insane the last few weeks, which I'm very thankful for. But I'm gonna pick one, and I'm gonna go actually with DJ Chark. Again, you just mentioned the Lions game. Minnesota is 29th in schedule adjusted points allowed wide receivers, so another great matchup there. This is actually the highest over-under of the week at 52.5 points. And the Lions, despite the records in Minnesota being, what are they, like 10-2 or something like that? The Lions are 2.5 point favorites. Vegas knows something that we don't, I think, or maybe we do, and that Minnesota is a fraud. But we'll see how the game plays out. But the Lions are right now 2.5 point favorites, and the biggest over under. Chark last week, 5 catches on 6 targets for 98 yards. A revenge game for him last week against Jacksonville. So great matchup. I think there's a lot of points to be had at the biggest over under. But then also, Have you seen Jared Goff's home away splits this season?
No.
Because they're actually pretty insane. All right, so let me just tell you real quick. So this game is in Detroit. Keep that in mind. So at home, Jared Goff has 750 more passing yards than he does on the road, and he has a quarterback rating of 104.8 versus 81 on the road. But the biggest, this is the craziest thing. I was looking at this because I wanted to bring this up and I couldn't believe it. I had to triple check it. At home, he has thrown 17 touchdowns versus 2 on the road.
Oh my God.
So I think Chark is another great play. I think, like I said, all the Detroit wide receivers are great plays. I think Chark gets a touchdown this week, and I think he's a, top 24 wide receiver.
Nice. Two interesting other statistics of playing in Detroit. Josh Allen is much better on the Detroit field than he is in Buffalo. But the other part is, when was the last time that the Lions were favored in a game? Was Barry Sanders playing? Because I think that was about right.
I don't know. It's going to be a very interesting game to watch. I'm very excited to see how it turns out. And like I said, having Amon-Ra St. Brown on my team makes me very happy. So,
especially if you're teetering, that is another one. If you're teetering on the playoffs, start Amon-Ra and then go with DJ as well. Did not know it was 17 touchdowns to 2. That's insane.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm going to go with a glaring one to me is my stardom for wideout is Adams. He's going to blow the lid off the Rams defense. I know Aaron Donald can get to Derek Carr, but they have not been able to get a lot of pressures on quarterbacks. And I just don't trust the secondary of the Rams this year. I don't know what's happened, but Adams will take the lid off the Rams. I think he goes for 2 touchdowns and he'll have 100 yards receiving.
Yeah, I think I was looking at his receiving yards line for player props this weekend. I think it opened up at like 88.5 or something crazy like that. And I would definitely take the over on that. So I'm with you. I think Adams keeps up what he's doing. I think he goes for over 100 yards and at least 1, but I could definitely see 2 touchdowns again this week for sure.
Yeah, and I'll go ahead and call my shot on one of the touchdowns. They're going to have Aaron Donald on the left side of the offensive line. They're going to roll Carr out on the illegal play. It's not illegal. Clemson ran.
Oh, like the pick play?
Yeah, they're going to run a pick play, roll Carr out, and that will be 1 to Adams right there. I'm just going to go ahead and call the shot.
I could see it for sure.
So, all right. So now we're moving on to tight end stardom for the week.
Well, mentioned him earlier, said we come back to him, but my tight end star of the week is going to be Hunter Henry from the New England Patriots. So I'm going to go back to the Patriots pool. Now listen, this is definitely a contrarian play. I know a lot of people for their starts are on like Greg Dulcich after his big game last week. Noah Fant had a big game. I'm actually kind of fading Noah Fant, but just for the match of this week. But my star of the week is Hunter Henry. A lot of it is purely matchup based. You start your tight ends against the Arizona Cardinals. They're 31st in schedule adjusted points allowed to tight ends. And Henry, as of late, he hasn't been spectacular. Last week was kind of a dud, but the week before he had the 1 touchdown. He was 1 bad call away from having 2 touchdowns and having a really massive week. But what's been impressive to me over the last 2 weeks is he's had 10 targets. So for tight ends, unless you've got Kelsey or like really, I mean, Kelsey's just, it's so far and above in a league of his own. But unless you got Kelsey, you're kind of scrambling looking for tight ends. So you want guys who are basically going to score you touchdowns, have that.
Interestingly enough, I will say Tom Hanks is coming back to reprise his role in a league of their own, but it's just going to be a biopic about Kelsey.
Yeah.
They just released that. It was awesome.
Yeah, there you go. So I think Hunter Henry gets a touchdown this week, and I think he is going to be a top 12 tight end with that. So.
Gotcha. All right. I'm going to go with Evan Ingram. He is going to be a safety blanket for Lawrence in the Jacksonville game. I just think it's volume. He may get a touchdown, may not. I know the kid's fast, but I think quick out routes, 5-10 yard catches. But if he can stack up, 8 to 10 of those, you've got a pretty solid week for Ingram, who's been super up and down this year. But I feel like when Lawrence gets in trouble, he leans on Ingram more and more. So if they're playing down and they're getting pressured, he's going to go to Ingram. And I think that happens in this game because they are up against Tennessee. And Tennessee's defense is the one that's kept them in. Now they're at Tennessee, they're at Nissan Stadium. So I think with the loud ruckus crowd, Tennessee's defensive line getting pressure on Trevor, he's going to look to Ingram at 5 and 10 yard out routes, and he's not going to try to blow the lid off.
I like it. Yeah, Ingram is another one that's been good, but like not, the thing is, people get so hype about Kelsey, and rightfully so. He's just absolutely killing it this year, like he does every year. But then the rest of the tight ends for fantasy is kind of a mess. So Ingram's one of those guys that's quietly been pretty solid. So I like it. I would start him if I had him.
All right, so easy peasy. This is kickers. This is almost just a matchup game plan, unless you have one of the top three that you start where the offenses score and you're going to get PATs, 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah. So for my kicker this week, when I look at kickers, unless I've got, somebody like Justin Tucker or Tyler Bass or somebody like that, I'm looking for teams that are at home in high scoring games. Usually, so with like high over-unders. And so this week, my pick of the week for my start of the week for kicker is Michael Badgley, the self-appointed money badger, I think is what he calls himself. I heard during
he's humble. That's a humble dude right there.
I heard during the game last week that he actually has that nickname trademarked. So he has like trademarked himself as the money badger. Yeah, so very, very humble. No, I want my kickers to have a little attitude, just like that Justin Tucker video on the airplane. But anyway,
so you want Pat McAfee in place kicking? That's what you want.
Yeah, exactly. So Detroit again is a home favorite. It's inside a dome, so you don't have to worry about the weather or wind or anything like that. It's the highest over/under on the slate this week, which we already talked about. And on top of all that, Minnesota actually allows the most schedule-adjusted points to kickers. So I think he goes off this week. I have Justin Tucker, and I'm considering starting him over Justin Tucker this week, just with Lamar Jackson being out and the Baltimore offense kind of struggling. So,
wow.
The money badger is my pick.
All right. Well, I'm a different thought process there. I went with Butker, and I think it's a two-headed sword. So either the Chiefs can get in and score a bunch, which gives them the PAT tries, or they don't, because Denver's defense is the only thing they have. Russell Wilson has been straight up garbage all year. And the defense bows their backs in the red zone, and then you get multiple opportunities at field goals. Plus, if they do decide to go for further ones, it's in Denver, mile high. The balls go further, the air's thinner, there's less resistance while it's in the air. So I think where you normally wouldn't kick like a 55-yarder, you can do it in Denver. Now, the wind, of course, is going to be a thing to look at. But I think with the smaller air and Mahomes being able to drive between the 20s, you're going to have 3 to 4 opportunities for field goal, if not 3 or 4 PATs.
Yeah, I like it. And we were actually talking about Russell Wilson before we started recording this episode. And it's just a mess, dude. Have you seen the thing on TikTok where the guy's tracking his passing touchdowns versus the bathrooms he has in his house?
Yeah,
he has 12 bathrooms in his house, if you haven't seen this, and he's only thrown 8 passing touchdowns. So
I feel like it's like a Manning curse. Denver went with Manning, won the Super Bowl, and then they have just screwed up from then on. And I understand picking Russell Wilson, trading for him, getting him in. He was great in Seattle, but the coaching is not as strong-willed as Pete Carroll. Russell needs the same thing that Andy Reid does for Mahomes, Pete Carroll was doing for Russell Wilson, and then he gets to like run whatever he wants to do in Denver, and he needs structure, and he doesn't have it.
I think that's something you mentioned, and you're wearing the Seahawks jersey. I think, if anything, this shows us how good of a coach Pete Carroll actually is, to put him in situations to succeed, to know how to get him back on track, because it's a mess there. You got linemen yelling at him on the sideline, and it's a mess.
People sleeping on the plane while he's doing jumping jacks.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm going to New York soon. I'm gonna do high knees on the plane and see how people feel about it. So Yeah, well, the good news is they can cut them, and it's only 124 million against the cap. That's what we were talking about. Or,
I can cover that. Don't worry.
yeah,
You know,
I mean, if you wait until next year, it's only 107. So I mean,
call
it's
Mr.
really
Beast,
not.
say, hey, can we do a YouTube video with Russell Wilson? Mr. Beast will cover the whole thing.
There you go. There you go.
So, what are we looking at on defense, which is, I think, just another matchup
Yeah.
situation?
So defense, we were just you were just talking about the Chiefs game. So I'm actually going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs defense as my start of the week. They are on the road. Typically, when I look for defensive starters, I want teams at home, especially Kansas City, because playing in that stadium is just really hard for opposing teams.
Yeah.
But it's on the road. But like we were just talking about, it's Denver. Offensively, they're just in shambles. Defensively, they're really good. So I think this is actually going to be a kind of a low-scoring game. I think, like you said, it leads itself to a lot of kick opportunities for Bucker, but I think it's going to be very low-scoring. Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites, despite being on the road, in one of the lower over-unders of the week. And Denver allows the 27th most schedule-adjusted fantasy points to opposing defenses. So I think Russell Wilson continues his streak of throwing less touchdowns than bathrooms that he has in his house. I would honestly be shocked if he even had one passing touchdown this week. I think the Chiefs are a good start. And then I actually have a bonus one, if you want me to go ahead and do that. A bonus defensive start is the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders. It's the same situation. The Rams are just in shambles. They just picked up Baker Mayfield off waivers. I don't know if that's really an improvement over what you had with what we saw.
Baker Mayfield is the most toxic human being that plays in the NFL. Like, when he came out of college, everyone was like, oh, the moxie, oh, this, he's got that attitude. No, people just genuinely don't like him. He walks around like he's like God's gift to creation, and he's not. And he's been shown that through Cleveland, is he a great athlete? Yeah. Dude's a stud when it comes to playing football. But you also have to get people to buy into, no, that's my quarterback, that's that. And people just don't do that for him. It's happened at two teams. I have a feeling it's going to happen in LA. And if Sean McVay if you can't play well offense with Sean McVay, I know Cooper Kupp's injured and he may come back for the playoffs, but it's ridiculous. So I understand people keep giving Baker because of his athletic ability, but I think you're right. I think the Raiders keep them well under. They may score 10. If they picked up Odell, maybe they could get somebody back on the outside, but they have no elite receivers with Kupp down. You can't just throw it to, who's the tight end over there?
Higbee.
Yeah, you can't just throw it to Higbee and try to run the ball. It's just not working. Love Sean McVay. I was excited when they won the Super Bowl, but this isn't their year, and they're decimated with injuries.
Yeah, it's definitely been one of the worst Super Bowl hangovers that I can remember. I don't even remember a worse one in recent memory, at least. And Baker's not going to win over people by headbutting them with no helmet on the sideline. So, and then the Rams are 30th in schedule-adjusted points. Fantasy points allowed to defenses. The Raiders are 6-point favorites. It's a low over-under, kind of middle of range at 44. So I think the Raiders are another start. If you can't get the Chiefs or don't have your start of the week, who I would start over all of these that we mentioned, then
mine's super, super simple. Play the team that sucks, and that right now that's Houston. Houston has Dameon Pierce, and outside of that, they ain't got a whole lot. So they're not going to score a bunch, and they're going against the Cowboys. So that's my defense to start this week. The Cowboys have been a buzzsaw for pretty much everybody. I had them at, I think, number 4 yesterday in my NFL review of top 10, and it's solely on the defense. I understand Zeke's running and this, and the offense is starting to get figured out, but their defense is disgusting. And so take the big obvious globe. So if you have them, because somebody has them in your league, nobody's not got the Cowboys. They're absolutely going to start them against you. Called the shot right here. They will have a fumble return for a touchdown.
Yeah,
Davis Mills will get strip sacked, and they're going to return it for a touchdown.
I watched every minute of that game against Indianapolis, and that was rough.
Disgusting. So, Oh, we got a timer. We've got 9.5 minutes. We do have sit-ems. We're going to do 4 of those. What is your sit QB of the week?
So my sit of the week, and I'll try to rush through these, is Mike White, quarterback of the New York Jets. I like Mike White. I was excited when he did well when he came in for Zach Wilson because I don't like Zach Wilson. But Buffalo is a tough matchup. They're 8th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. Mike White also looked just bad last week. He was missing wide open guys. He just wasn't seeing them. Particularly with like his tight ends. I remember he had Conklin like wide open in the corner of the end zone and just completely missed him. He has a great rest of season schedule, but this week I would not start him. So I'm not dropping him, but I'm not starting this week by any means. And on top of that, the last time he played Buffalo, he threw 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So not great history there.
Rough. So mine is going to be Davis Mills playing in Jerry World against that Cowboys defense. He's going to get sacked 5 times. He's going to drop the ball on one of those strip sacks and it's going to get run back. I'll be surprised if he ends up with 7 points.
Yeah, I can see that. My running back sit of the week is Rachaad White of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, I was excited to see him come out of college. I thought he was going to fit in really well with the Buccaneers, especially once he's taken over the backfield now. He did start over Fournette, I think, maybe just due to injury, but the 49ers is a really tough defense. They're 4th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. That game is going to be a super defensive game. It's tied for the lowest over-under at 37 points. And right now, I know the Bucs pulled off that last-minute win last week, but they still just look so disconnected. And I just don't see, despite them going up against Brock Purdy and the 49ers, I just don't see that game getting too out of hand. I think it's going to be super defensive, and I think the run games are going to suffer because of it. Yeah, I've actually even knocked down McCaffrey a few spots because of it too. So
yeah, CMC's definitely suffering because Jimmy G's not there. We might come on another sit-em for me because of that. But my running back to sit is going to be Devin Singletary with Buffalo. They're going to be playing the Jets in Buffalo, and if the Storm ends up staying up there, I understand you're going to run a lot. But Cook did a great job last week spilling off Singletary, and if it does happen to go down, the weapons that he wants to use is Gabe Davis. Josh Allen will run himself, Stephon Diggs, and with Cook being the better catching back out of the backfield, I just think it's a bad week for Singletary to look at. So all of those kind of just make me not feel comfortable with Singletary. And another hot take, James Cook will have more points in half PPR and PPR leagues than Singletary will this week.
as much as it pains me to say, I agree with you because I have to start Singletary because of bye weeks and also trying to get in the playoffs. But I'm just hoping for a touchdown to bail him out like last week. So moving on, my wide receiver sit of the week is Juju Smith-Schuster with the Kansas City Chiefs. We've kind of talked about that game a lot already, but, I think the defenses are really going to get it going in that game. Denver is a very tough defense. They're second in schedule adjusted fantasy points to wide receivers. I also think that whatever happens with the Chiefs, I think they're going to try to get a bounce back game for Kelsey, or it's going to be the run game. I just don't see the wide receivers getting it done in this game. And then especially with the low over-under and the very defensive game script, I think Juju is going to suffer for it. I think Kansas City is going to get a lead, and then they're just going to run the ball. So
that is the exact reason my wide receiver sit-em this week is going to be Michael Gallup. The Cowboys are going to go up by 2 touchdowns in the first quarter. They're going to lean on Zeke. They're going to lean on Pollard. And I'll be surprised if Dak throws the ball 15 times that game. They'll be up. They'll be fine. And then they're going to run. Houston's not going to be able to stop the run. They'll be up probably 21 to 28 points by the half, and they're going to cruise. They're not going to throw the ball.
Yeah, they may be up by 2 touchdowns before the offense even sees the field.
Yeah. So that's just don't start Michael Gallup. He's going to have a bad week. Not that he's not a good receiver, but he's not going to have the opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Well, my tight end sit of the week is David Njoku. Now, I have Njoku on my fantasy team. So it pains me to say this, the tight end for the Cleveland Browns, by the way. But he's just been dealing with injuries. He didn't play last week because of an injury he got to his other knee. So now he's got injuries in both knees that he's dealing with. Cincinnati also is 5th in schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed to tight ends. Plus, Cleveland Cincinnati is always kind of a surprisingly defensive game anyway. Just those interdivisional matchups are always a little off from the regular that you see the rest of the year. But I think it's going to be that type of game. I don't want to trust him with injuries. There's already a report that he's expected to play, which is why I'm saying he's a sit. I want to see him be healthy. There's question marks about how he's going to be with Deshaun Watson. I just don't know if he's going to be his target like he was with Brissett. So there's just a lot of question marks around Njoku. And this time of year, trying to get in the playoffs, I'm not going to risk it. I want to see it first.
I've been bragging on the Bengals defense, not having any superstar players, but they're really, really good. They're the number 1 team in keeping plays over 20 yards down. So I love the Cincinnati defense. That they're no name. It's almost like the NFL version of a Georgia defense, with the exception of Jalen Carter. Those defenses, you don't hear a lot about the starters, but you hear about the defense itself. And that's what Cincinnati looks like. You don't hear a bunch about the starters, but good Lord, you earn every yard. So mine is going to be, sadly, Kittle. George Kittle is the sit tight end. I have him. He's the only tight end I have, so I have no option. But if you have an option at tight end to go somewhere else, Jimmy G going down, everybody over the week has said, oh, he's going to be the safety blanket. No, he's not. CMC out of the backfield, and Ayuk is going to be the safety blanket for Brock Purdy, who is pretty inexperienced in NFL snaps and is kind of being flushed into let's go start this game. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty. And Kittle will have less than 4 looks in the game. So sadly, Kittle.
I agree with you there. When the 49ers are in trouble and they need extra time for their quarterback, which they will for Brock Purdy, they leave Kittle in the block. So I think unfortunately for the rest of the year, his role is going to be mostly blocking. They'll run him on routes and he'll probably have good games just on busted coverage, but I think most of the time he's going to be in as an extra blocker to give Purdy more time. So I agree.
So, all right, man, well, we've got 2 minutes, so we did good. I know, guys, this is a long video, but we wanted to give an explanation. Throw this video on in the background while you're working today and tomorrow. Listen to what we say or don't listen to what we say. Let us know in the comments where we're woefully dumb and we don't know what we're talking about. That is cool. I'm all about it. And maybe every one of our picks is wrong, but then you're listening to 2 guys on YouTube. So, I mean, do what you think is best. So I think we've wrapped up pretty good. John the Stone, I will put the link to his Twitter in the description below. Go follow him. Again, he knows a lot more of the analytical stuff. Me, I just go with my gut, and I'm like, hey, that guy's cool. And it has just worked out for me this year. So thanks for coming on. We all appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hopefully be back again. This was a lot of fun. So
yeah, we'll probably kick it next week, give you guys, hopefully on Tuesday, to give you guys a little bit more time to adjust your fantasy lineups, but you do have 24 hours or maybe 30 right now, and we'll hit it next week. So, all right, guys, appreciate you coming on. John the Stone. Follow him on Twitter, on YouTube for me. Smash that subscribe button, hit the like button if you like this kind of content, and Fam Jam, we'll see you next time. We're out.